want to start off by thanking all of the sponsors, the AARP, the Evansville Teachers Association, the Evansville Vanderburgh Public Library, which consistently hosts this, the IBEW Local 16, the NAACP, Valley Watch, United Neighborhoods of Evansville, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Plumbers, and Steamfitters, Local 136, and the League of Women Voters. I see both state senators are now here. This is our last session. So great to have you. Really, really excited that we have a 100% full slate of all local regional legislators. Let's give everybody a hand for showing up. Finally, a note on process. It's okay, and it's obviously welcomed and I think important to let folks know how you feel about things, but we want to do it in a respectful way. Most importantly, not interrupting either someone asking a question or someone answering a question. There is no tolerance for that here, and you will be asked to leave. You will not be asked to leave. You will be told to leave and made to leave. So do not do that. As we did last time, if you want to express pleasure or displeasure, we have these nice green and red cards. I think that's working out well. And because we're so blessed to have such a great slate here, we're going to make a slight tweak to the time. As always, we will have a 5-minute opening. I'll draw your question at random. You can come up, ask it. We'll get 1 minute for that. Then we ask that you sit down because this isn't an ongoing dialogue. You ask the question, then they respond. We've typically done 3 minutes, but to ensure we get through enough questions, we're going to cut that down to 2-minute response times on the questions from each legislator today. And what we'll do is we'll start at one end, go the other, and the next question we'll start at the other and do it that way. So with that, we'll start with our 5-minute opening statements from every legislator that's here. Since the state senators came in here at the tail end, I think I'll start at the other end with State Representative Wendy McNamara.
Thank you, Josh. Good morning. Wendy McNamara, represent House District 76, which is all of Posey County, the west side of Vanderburgh County, and North Park area, and all of German Township. I am the chair of Courts and Criminal Code, which is, depending on the week, the second most busiest committee in the House or the third busiest committee in the House. Just really depends on how many bills are coming my direction. And I thought I was done last week, but I was surprised that I got another bill. This is my 15th year in the legislature, and I enjoy the process of making sure that we take care of our community and prioritizing those things that are in our community that are very important to us. Last week, with all the flooding, had a lot of contact with our local elected officials to try to see what we could do on the state level to help, and specifically Posey County for the most part, but to some degree in Vanderburgh County. And it's things like that where our involvement helps push the envelope a little quicker than they would be, seeking any relief. And with that, Governor Braun was able to declare some disaster relief for Posey County in that particular situation. But more than anything, thank you for coming today, and appreciate your spending a Saturday morning with us.
Good morning, Tim O'Brien, State Representative for House District 78. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's truly an honor to represent Southwest Indiana in the State House alongside my colleagues who are all up here today. Just want to thank you guys all for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your weekend to be a part of an open dialogue. I represent House District 78. That's the east side of Vanderburgh County, the west side of Warwick County, and virtually all of downtown Newburgh. I have the pleasure of serving on House Ways and Means Committee, which may be the busiest committee in the House, where I serve as chair of the K-12 Funding Committee subcommittee. I'm also on the Government and Regulatory Reform Committee and on Veterans Affairs and Public Safety. I'm focused on promoting good public policy that protects and improves the lives of all Hoosiers, and that includes every single person in this room today. We've got a lot of busy things happening at the State House. It's a busy time to be at the State House. We've got about 2 weeks left. I think we're going to finish not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. I think that's what we're eyeing for. So there's a lot of moving parts. We just passed committee report deadlines, so the traditional committees are now over. Now we're just going to have bills on seconds and thirds, and then lots of conference committees and conference committee reports to vote on. So In addition to some of the big bills I've been working on, like the state budget and our property tax relief bill that we passed out of the House this week, I'm going to focus on a few bills. I'm sure we'll get to those later. I want to focus on a few priorities that I had in addition to those. One being the restructuring of the Evansville PSCDA, the Professional Sports and Convention Development Authority, that we currently have in our city. Right now, ours is uniquely structured. It's different than every other structure in the state of Indiana. There's some in Indianapolis, there's some in Fort Wayne and South Bend, and theirs is all a flat dollar amount. Ours is it's actually a dollar amount per resident of the city. And what this allows for you to do is that you instead of sending these tax dollars to the state, you keep them for economic development purposes and convention development purposes. And right now, ours is $10 per resident, so it gives us a capture cap of about $1.2 million to use for economic development. I want to change that to $5 million a year for a continued process of, and the plan is up to $5 million a year for the first 5 years, up to $6 million a year for the second 5 years. And then the last 5 years in the program, up to $7 million a year, garnering up to $90 million in economic development for our region. And our House passed that out of the House already, and was so supportive of it, we put it in the state budget. And, we're working right now with the Senate to ensure that that stays in there so that we can have some economic development money to continue to, do projects in our community that attract folks to come move here and to come and to stay here, because that's what it's all about. A second, I'm working on a form of foreign policy, if you will, the first trade commission for the state of Indiana, the Indiana-Ireland Trade Commission. And if you ask why would we do that? Well, Indiana's largest trade partner when it comes to imports is Ireland. Anybody surprised to hear that? It's to the tune of $20.8 billion. $20.8 billion. There's 52 based Ireland companies in Indiana. And then we have 11 Indiana-based companies in Ireland. And I want to continue to, build upon that and increase bilateral trade between our two countries. And I can't think of a better time than now to build a bridge with another country, especially somebody in the European Union, the last English speaking country in the European Union, a gateway to one of the world's largest markets. So working on that. And then I also have a bill that just passed out of the House and is now making its way to the floor of the Senate, which is the Pediatric Cancer Research Fund creation and grant and treatment program as well. The Senate amended, in Senate Public Health, where Senator Becker sits, they amended the breast cancer fund and treatment program into the bill as well. I think everybody in this room knows somebody or is somebody who's been affected by cancer. And I want the state to start to prioritize, the funding research in that regard for many reasons, but just because one of the reasons, the number one cause of death for Hoosier children is pediatric cancer. And honestly, it's something we need to look at funding even further. So I want to thank you for your time and looking forward to the discussion today.
Morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Ledbetter. I represent House District 75, which is almost all of Warwick County, minus maybe the town of Newburgh, which Tim has, Eastern Gibson County, and almost all of Pike County. I serve on the Public Health Committee, Insurance Committee, and Family and Children Committee. I want to follow up a little bit with what Representative McNamara said. Governor Braun also declared Warwick County a flood emergency to help us out. We also had Oakland City had a tornado about 3 weeks ago, and then we had one in Princeton this week. So we've got a lot going on with the weather. I'm happy to be here this morning. I don't have much to share beyond that. As far as bills, I did help get Senator Tom's bill, the signal jammer bill, through the House, and I'm going to let him talk to you more about that. And that's all I got for you. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex Burton, House District 77, representing majority of the city of Evansville. This is my first session, so learning a whole lot all at the same time with so many moving parts happening. I've been focused on what's happening within the committees I serve on, which is utilities, family and children, judiciary, and natural resources. And though there's been some controversial stuff coming out of both, there has been some good things coming out of all those committees as well. And I'll get into those a little bit later on. This first year has been all about learning and building relationships. So much happening, as I mentioned, and there's so much opportunity and looking to further take advantage of it. And though I'm in the super minority, having some progress and getting some amendments through, and hopefully next session we'll have some bills come through that directly impact the average Hoosier. So focus on that, and then again, moving forward, prioritizing, focusing on just the average Hoosier. There's a lot of issues that we should be addressing right now that are currently just being kicked down the hill. So I'll stop at that and pass it over to Senator Becker.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you. It's great to be here. I've had an eventful couple of months. I had COVID and flu B in February and had it again last week. So I am much better now, or I wouldn't be here, but it's been a struggle because I got tested at a MEC center a week ago Sunday, and then on the following Friday got checked again because I wasn't feeling well at the State House all week, and found out I had flu B and COVID again. So I was home this last week. So I've missed out on some things that I wish I hadn't, and some things I just as well missed out on. So, but I serve on public policy, which deals with gaming issues as well as alcohol issues. I serve on public health, and I serve on local government. It has been a very busy session, and the health committee is probably the busiest committee that I serve on, and it's very busy. We've had issues with hospitals trying to help to rein in the cost of healthcare. And what I've always said, unless we get the insurance industry involved, you're not going to get anywhere, because they determine the payments and they withhold. And then you've got these people that deal in the drug situation, PBMs, and they take money off the top, and it is, so I think we're getting somewhere a little bit. We have House Bill 1003 and 1004, and Senator Lysing, who's a retired nurse, she said it's the worst bill she's ever seen in the legislature, came from the House, and we worked on it for a long time, and it's now, I think, pending over in appropriations along with House Bill 1003, which was also a healthcare bill. But I think the focus has been on hospitals, and it really you can't really do anything unless, as I said, you get the insurance industry involved, and we've never done that. The legislature has refused to go there. And we've seen some movement this session. So I'm hoping we can get a balanced approach. Deaconess Hospital is here. They're not one of the big five. I know that the big five, there's Parkview, which is up in northern Indiana. They've got a big conglomerate, and there's 4 other systems. But Deaconess is one of the very reasonable ones. And they are also very good community partners here in Evansville. They've deeded over the sports park. That's a very wonderful thing. They helped with some of the other infrastructure programs and policies here in Evansville. And I will tell you that our former Lieutenant Governor, Suzanne Crouch, has also gone to work for Deaconess in their foundation area, and she's going to be a big plus for them as well as for the community. So I'll stop there, and happy to answer any questions, and I know there will be some. So thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning, everybody. I think this is on, yes. Nice seeing all the sunshiny faces in here, sunshine outside. Every weekend we come home, it's either tornadoes coming through, hurricanes, maybe, I don't know, earthquakes, rain. So it's nice to have a sunny day for a change. Maybe I can even mow grass before this is over with. I'm glad to see Vanita's back and our star basketball players back here again. I am glad you hear them. Alex is good, man. It's enjoyment working with him. Um, the committees I'm on is local government and natural resources, agriculture, and I'm the ranking majority member on Homeland Security and Transportation. I'm also the chairman of the Veterans Affairs and Military Committee. And it's an honor to serve in those capacities. It's really an honor. It's an honor to serve as a senator, and I'm proud of being able to do that. I want to say yes. I want to also thank Cindy for helping on that Senate Bill 26. That was a jamming device. I've talked to you before about it. This is a thing that you can buy. It comes in from China. You can purchase these things, maybe $150. Some of them are more expensive if you go more elaborate. But these devices are used by criminals to defeat security systems. Your home security systems in your house, they can defeat that. They can rob your house. You'll never know anybody was there until you get home. It even defeats law enforcement's communication devices in their vehicles. With the incident we had here in Evansville some months ago, there's where we found out just how destructive these things can be as far as keeping people safe in their homes. When that took place, were the two fellows that was robbing the home, the homeowners come in, caught them, they escaped, but later in the day, one of our deputy sheriffs pulled them over, and when he pulled up behind their car, his systems went out on his car. He didn't know what would happen. He couldn't communicate. We can't have this. These devices are used for criminal purposes. And so I'm glad to get the bill through the Senate, got over to the House. I want to thank Cindy for getting it through the House. They did change something in it. I dissented on the bill when it's come back. They took one element out that's crucial. I want it back in that bill. So hopefully we can get it back in and get this bill to the governor for signing, because I know our law enforcement does not need more handicaps. They deal with enough things as it is now, and they don't need electronic gadgets that will cut off their communication system to their departments and things like that. So the other bill I did have on public safety was the one about these street takeovers, where these cars late at night, they get maybe 100 cars, they spin their circles in the intersections up in the mostly this takes place in downtown big cities, and Indianapolis is one of them. And I was looking the bill up today to see what's come of it. I got it through the Senate unanimously, and I seen it. The bill is still alive, so I'll have to find out with some of my House members, is it going to make it or not? We are down to the wire, getting there. A couple weeks left, and this is where it really gets strange, because bills that might have been maybe an eight-page bill or something, maybe it didn't do too well on the cycle getting through the system, winds up in another bill, and before long you got a bill like, for example, this 1002. You guys are aware of that one. That's a 161-page bill. I was reading it Thursday, 161 pages. I got to tell you, I'm very skeptical about voting on bills that are more than 12 pages. Okay, this is 161 pages. It had 29 amendments on it. It was in second readings. Now, I looked through the bill, and like I said, it's a collective body of other bills now, what we're dealing with. There's portions of it, I think, that were good. But there's some things in there that I have a lot of questions on. I'll get to ask those questions when we go back in Monday. It'll be up on third reading. I don't like to be a hard case, but sometimes we got bills like this. I'm not just going to stamp approval on it because there's so much in it. I need to know what some of these details are really going to do. And so anyway, we'll find out. We got, like I said, this week ought to be another exciting week. And when the moderator was talking about behaving yourselves, I think he could have just summed it up as don't behave like they do at the State House. Because it gets kind of wild up here. But thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And I have enjoyed these meetings. I've been very happy to be here for these past 3 months. And so, well, now 4 months. And well, actually, it was only 3 because we missed out on one.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, thank you for being here today and look forward to your questions.
All right. I think since Representative McNamara started us off, Senator Thomas, you'll be starting off here on the answers as well. Barton, if you want to come on up, his question concerns minimum wage.
Thank you. In 2009 was the last minimum wage adjustment. In 2011, Indiana state legislator passed a bill preventing counties, towns, and cities from creating their own minimum wage. Since then, the poverty rates have doubled. And we continue getting center point bills. But the Evansville public workers have received their wages raised again. And the legislators have gotten their wages over the years, about $15,000 since then. The same raises applied to 2,000-hour workers would come out to about $15 an hour. And that would be 15 cents more than a livable wage. So this law prevents the representatives we pay from acting and advocating on behalf of the public that needs more money. Since the Supreme Court has repeatedly supported the rights of panhandlers to ask for money, why don't we get the same grace? Thank you.
I didn't get your name, sir. Barton. Okay, thank you. Barton. Well, I worked as a Teamster truck driver for 33 years, and we had union contracts, and the advantage, some of the many advantages of working in an organized company is that you have bargaining rights and you have contracts, and those contracts were very fair and are worked out between the companies and the unions, and we always had good benefits and good pay. And I support that. But I know also there are employers out there that do offer good wages for their employees. They're non-union, but they do offer good wages and good benefits. Now, some don't. And there's a lot of people out there that have to work. They got to get a job, and they're working places that's paying minimum wage. And if they could get away with it, it'd go less. Well, I know that's what we deal with. But I've seen in the last few years where, and I wouldn't want anything to disrupt trying to increase wages, but I've seen in recent years where the employers alone on their own, because of the things that's happened since COVID, they have raised pay scale on their own. The working element of our society has done that on their own. We've seen years back where Burger King was offering $15 an hour. That was way above the minimum wage. And I know the post office, a little small post office in Wadesville, I forgot what their wage they're offering right now. It says $21 an hour, and they still can't get anybody to work. I mean, that sign's been out there now hiring for 2 years at $21 an hour. So I think the public has on their own made some advancements on wages without government getting involved in it. That's a fact. And so, but I wouldn't want to see anything come along that would hinder increase in wages, but they're pretty much doing it on their own.
Thank you, Senator Thompson. You may have heard, just so everybody knows, we have a new timing system. It's a much more soothing bell, which I guess is good and bad.
Let's see. Oh, you're right.
No, you're good. Senator Becker.
I certainly support an increase in the minimum wage. But I think the majority of people aren't working for the minimum wage. The minimum wage in Indiana right now is $7.25, which is ridiculous. And it should be raised, but as I said, and as Jim said, the majority of people aren't working for that minimum wage. They're doing it on their own. I mean, McDonald's is $15 an hour. So there's a lot of ways that people make a whole lot more, but I do think just as a matter of public policy, we should raise the minimum wage. And I would support that.
Yeah, thanks, Senator Becker. You took my answer. but no, to dive a little bit deeper into that, as I mentioned, I just feel like the squeeze is on the average person in the state right now who doesn't own a home. There is very little incentives that exist to improve the housing situations and just the overall quality of life for the average person. And that's where my focus is trying to make sure that advocate when possible to make sure that we're keeping in mind the average person and what they can afford. The average income for families in this state is not even $40,000. And with our unpredictable utility costs, that means there's less money in the pockets of those pockets of families all over. And so we have to take all that into consideration and figure out a plan to make sure that not only Indiana's healthy economically from a business standpoint, that those who are living here have the opportunity to live and thrive and live beyond just renting and owning a home and having extra income in their bank accounts. So.
Okay, Representative Ledbetter.
This new card system is making it awful quiet in here. So I guess to echo off of Senator Tom's, I really expected the Biden administration to work on this issue when he got elected. And it amazed me that that didn't happen. And I think the reason why that didn't happen is because with COVID, we saw the inflation from that, and we saw the business owners automatically raise the wages to meet the needs of the people. I do agree with Senator Becker in that it would be good public policy to raise it, but the question would be finding a balance of what to raise it to. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what has been said earlier about majority of Hoosiers not being receiving the minimum wage, I think is right. I think most Hoosiers are working for a higher wage. I think this is something that the free market should take care of. And I think that it's something that we've already seen happen. You're seeing more and more examples like, fast food restaurants offering $15 an hour and offering other things like Spotify subscriptions and anything they can to attract the labor. So I think the free market should take care of it. But when you're talking about putting more dollars back into the pockets of hardworking Hoosiers, I'm all in favor of that. 2 years ago, we passed the largest tax cut in the state's history, which brought down the income tax to the lowest amongst any state in the nation that has one at 2.9% by 2027. And we're on the way to get there. And that puts more dollars back into the pockets of hardworking Hoosiers. And I think that's something we all should be supportive of.
I don't have a whole lot to add, but I would say, historically speaking, when the minimum wage was created, it wasn't intended to be a living wage. And we do have a very low unemployment rate. I would encourage, if there are folks out there that are desiring to earn a higher wage, they are available, but in a lot of cases, you can't get out of just high school today, for example. You have to have something beyond that if you want to earn those higher wages. You got to at least get a 2-year degree from, let's say, Ivy Tech, an associate's degree or some sort. In 2025, the college growing rate has hit a cliff and it's going to go down. The average person probably won't be able to get the wage they're expecting if they only have the high school degree. But if they get the technical certificate or something beyond that, that will help increase their wages. But like all of the previous comments prior, just think about the history of where it came from and the opportunities that are available today for those that want to go get higher wages and earn higher wages that are out there. That's about all.
All right. Move on to our next question, and we're going to start off with two topics we don't usually get at these. So this one is from Michael Tellez. Would you support House Bill 1322, which concerns blockchain, and House Bill 1156 concerning digital asset mining? Is Michael here? Yep. You can come on up.
Josh, what are the numbers?
1322 and 1156.
Y'all ready to roll your eyes harder than you've ever rolled them before? Y'all are gonna laugh at me. Okay, I'll make it as quick as I can. I wish I had like an hour to say everything I want to. But there's a monopoly on the control of money. And It's happened over and over again in history that when a country has a monopoly on the control of money, they debase their currency and it flows from the lower class and the middle class and makes rich people richer. You can all see it happening right now. There's no way we're going to vote. I mean, I don't know how it works with state senators as well. I know federally, nobody's ever going to vote to kill the Federal Reserve. They're very much beneficiaries of it. But this is where you're going to roll your eyes. Bitcoin is an entirely different monetary system outside of the Federal Reserve. And it's just controlled by computer algorithms. There's nobody that's going to say, no, we need more money over here. We need to take more money from those people.
Thank you,
When
Michael.
somebody
That's a
wants
minute.
money,
Appreciate it.
they have to convince you to give
Okay.
it to them.
And
It should work.
I
That way.
think
Did you have a question, Michael?
Yeah. Are you gonna-
maybe, I think the
Oh.
question is, will you support
It's
those
already
bills?
been passed and
Yeah.
signed by the governor,
Oh,
1322.
and I apologize. I didn't know that. So that makes the answer pretty easy.
1322, what about 11?
It's not, it has moved.
No,
Yeah.
that was signed.
No, 1322, 11
1156 digital asset mining.
hasn't moved
It died.
in committee in the House for a second.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, I appreciate the topic then, but I think we ought to focus on stuff that they actually have before them this session. So looks like one passed, one died. We'll move on to one I know is definitely live. This is from Mark Lichtenberg, School Funding, House Bill 1001 and Senate Bill 1.
I know you're surprised to see me come and ask a question about school funding. I appreciate the Senate's version of the budget that did not increase the cap on the vouchers and also reduce the funding for virtual charters. However, Senate Bill 1 is, I think there's a lot of questions about Senate Bill 1 in the room. It seems to be property tax relief coupled with an income tax hike, which doesn't feel like tax relief at all to me. And it really hurts schools. So for instance, EVSC, under the Senate House bill, Senate budget, I should say, gets about $3.7 million net in the first year, but the property tax is reduced by $3.1 million. So it's almost a zero-sum budget for EVSC. And that's across the board in this region. So I'd like for you to help me understand how Senate Bill 1 is going to help schools.
All right. Thank you. I forgot. I think we started with you last time. Yep. So Senator Toms, if you want to start us off here.
Well, Mark, that Senate Bill 1 is still in the works. We were told Thursday that it's become a combination of the governor's budget bill, the Senate, and the House. And I don't know what the final product is going to be like yet. And it's really not a cut to the locals. They're just not going to get as much as they was expecting to get. It's not a cut. They're just not going to allocate as much as they had been, or what they thought they was going to get. But I am mystified by the fact that they tell us we're getting this break on our property taxes, but then it allows for the locals to raise the tax, create a new tax. And for me, and I asked this Thursday because I'm not in the budget cycle, I'm not in that, but when I hear the explanation on it from a guy who just is just an average person. I was a working class man all my life. I know the value of money. And so when we're going to do this here where the locals can raise taxes, so I'm still getting taxed. I don't care what color the tax is. It's a tax. I'm just you're still taking my money. That's what we're doing. And I ask, okay, if the assessors can continue to increase the assessment of their property values, won't that neutralize any kind of a tax break that people's getting? They said, well, not as much. Folks, I'm just telling you everything I've been told. I'm still listening. But some of this stuff just doesn't make sense. It's not how you and I would calculate on saving money, spending money on a smaller scale, right, in our own world. So I'm just not convinced yet, but I don't know the final version. We'll see what comes of it. But I wish I could give you a better answer, but I don't have it yet. We don't have it. We're still waiting to hear what they come up with. So,
Senator Becker?
Well, I agree with Jim. We don't know what the final product's going to be, but I don't think it's going to be good for public schools, unfortunately. And when the majority of our kids still go to public schools, we ought to be doing more for public schools. So, and I would be curious, and maybe, you know, part of Governor Braun's budget bill included giving millionaires a voucher for their kids. And I do not agree with that. And I don't think the majority, in fact, I asked on a survey to my constituents if they supported people making $240,000 getting a voucher for their kid to go to private or parochial school, and 87% said no, they did not. You know, and nowhere in this country, when there's been a referendum on this issue of vouchers, has it ever passed. Kentucky had it on their ballot this last fall. It didn't pass, but unfortunately, it's like in Indiana, they've lost their minds. Yeah, that's. So I disagree with what they're doing with that. I don't mind it. You know, we started off with a bill that actually provided a chance for students in a failing school to go elsewhere, and it was based on you couldn't make more than $12,000. And now with Braun's proposal, you can make $1 million and still get a voucher. It makes no sense to me. When we know that 95% of our kids still go to public schools. So I'm hoping for a better outcome. But one thing I did hear, and it was a rumor, so I don't know what the income limit is right now for a voucher. Mark, do you? I heard it was 400%.
It's like 250,000 for family of four.
It's 400%.
Yeah, 240,000, I think is what it is. But I don't know what somebody said when I called the State House earlier this week that it was based on 400% of the federal poverty level.
It is.
I think that's.
And I don't know if that's it, but I don't think it needs, like I said, I asked my constituents and it wasn't a loaded question. It just asked them if they supported people making $240,000 to get a voucher for their kid, and 87% said no.
Thank you, Senator Becker. Representative Byrd?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to a question, part of the question that Bart asked about just the local government piece, and coming from city council to now realizing that we're going to get less money than what we predicted puts us in a bind. That means our police, our fire, the emergencies, everything that we need is going to be put in jeopardy because they're going to have less money to work with. What kind of chaos does that send through our community? Then moving on to SB1, public schools lose at a time, as Senator Becker mentioned, about majority of our kids going to public school. They're at a time where everyone's squeezed for whether we're talking food, working overtime, double time. We need our schools to not only be the safe havens, but even possibly even extending their hours so that kids have somewhere safe to be. And taking money away from our kids and our schools right now is the absolute wrong approach. As what was mentioned earlier, less students are going to college. So that means the value of a high school education is going to be that much more important. And here we are defunding that. At the same time, the state's spending more than $1 billion on a jail. And so we have to navigate all these things and make sure that we're putting our kids in a position to thrive. And we're not doing that. And frankly, I'm most concerned about the students who are attending Boise Central and Harrison, because those are in the central, that's the central part of not only my district, but where there are so many students who need some extra supports that are no longer having them. And I know there's been also some discussions about the vouchers and that sort of thing. One of the things that I was been thinking through and getting ready to propose, it's the end of session now, so I'll worry about it next year, legislative session, but the 21st Century Program. Right now, that cap is at $53,000 for a household of one child. I would love to see, as what was mentioned, if all these millionaires and people making $400,000 or more can get a free ride to a high school, then certainly we can find the money to make sure that more of our kids have a pathway to college.
Right.
Representative Ledbetter?
Okay, so I'm just gonna try to explain to you a little bit of what Senate Bill 1 does from the House version. Senate Bill 1, it advances long-term reforms to the property tax. We are changing Indiana's property tax system from an assessed value, a market perception system to an actual value system, the purchase price of the property. That is the goal here. That way homeowners won't be shocked by their tax bill because it'll be the same every year. We met with several stakeholders over this, including local government, and we finally got to a place where everybody was a little uncomfortable, but we could agree to move forward. This bill limits the growth of local governments. I'm expecting to receive 5.3% increase in revenue from property tax this year. They will only see a 3% increase, so there will be a decline. It also puts stronger controls in place to rein in 54.3 billion in local government debt. There's lots of restrictions in the bill on general obligation bonds, restricting local governments from using those bonds to move money, which is not good governance. Property taxes are very complicated and there's all these moving pieces behind. And I know that it's frustrating, but we really worked hard in the House to just try to get it to a place where everybody would be okay, a little bit uncomfortable, but okay.
Representative O'Brien?
Okay, yeah, so I'll start by saying, first of all, I'm a product of public education. I'm a proponent of public education. And to say that the House budget doesn't prioritize public education is just simply wrong. It is the largest portion of our state's budget. The largest portion of our state's budget. I think to this budget cycle, it's going to be about 47%. And our House passed budget increases the K-12 tuition support formula by $560 million, a 4.1% increase. I think that's something to be proud of. And I think that's something that I've talked to a lot of, the stakeholders about, and that's something that they're supportive of. And it also, provides more money for the curricular materials appropriation that we worked on a couple years ago. I know we've talked about that, but again, this is the largest portion of our state's budget. And when you talk about the Senate Bill 1, I mean, this is a lot to cover in 2 minutes, Josh. I mean, if we can get some more time here, I'd like that. Like Cindy said, property taxes in Indiana the system is rather complicated. And I think what Senate Bill 1 does is it simplifies it and adds more transparency to the system. And if I'm looking, we passed it out of the House in a bipartisan fashion this week. And when I look at the data, when I look at what the net levy revenue for our local community, we look at the county and the city of Evansville and the school corporation, they're going to receive higher revenue year over year over year. And to me, I don't see how anybody can say that that's taking money away. They're receiving more money year over year over year. The numbers don't lie. I'm more than happy to share them with you. And so, like Representative Ledbetter said, I think that, we've heard loud and clear that Hoosiers want property tax relief. And what's that? They want property tax relief. And I think we've been able to do it in such a way that we can provide $1.4 billion in relief to Hoosier taxpayers, like most of you, and also not kneecap local government so that they're losing money. They're receiving more money year over year after year. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Representative McNamara?
I've not ever been a fan of vouchers and the voucher system. When we started out, or when I started out way back when in 2011, 2012, it was a negotiation of a certain percentage of poverty rate. And I question at 400% what we're doing with that. Just wanted to make that comment. But, Senate Bill 1, probably the number one issue that my constituents have brought to me in the past 3 to 5 years has been property taxes and asking for some property tax relief. The state of Indiana does not get a dime. We don't get a dime from property taxes, but we've been asked to help resolve a growing issue in all our communities, and that's by giving our homes and our taxpayers relief on property taxes. Senate Bill 1 does that, but also it does not do that at the expense of anything else. If you are to look at the numbers, the state of Indiana, and correct me if I'm wrong, we will see a 0.3% increase. Most communities will see a 3.5% increase. That's starting here, right? So we don't have any money to give, but we're doing that. And the important point to know is you've been used to be getting money because of the money from COVID. You've seen a very robust budget over the last, because we've been fiscally responsible last 15 years. You're just not getting any more money. Okay. You're getting what the budget has available. And I wish we had more time to spend on this because I'm getting down to my last minute, but 2/3 of all Hoosier taxpayers, 2/3 will see property tax relief.
Well, and I will say, we've had many questions here that are on Senate Bill 1, so I think before this ends, we will, if not twice, at least one more time, come back to this so you guys can comment on this. The next question is from Henry. I'm sorry if I'm reading this wrong. Kathman. Senate Bill 287, which concerns partisanship in school board elections. I looked, I think that's still live.
Yep.
Yep. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy to see all you guys here. So I'm here as a member of the Evansville Teachers Association, as well as a board member of the ETA. Senator Tomes, one thing you say oftentimes at these meetings is how public education is one of those things that there are just so many hands put on it. It's the one part of government that there are too many hands on it.
That's true.
And something that we're concerned about in the matter of school board elections, as this bill puts forward, is the chance of having party affiliations being listed on a school board election. That could be another hand just being placed on public education instead of trusting the public to be able to do their research, to be able to find out what is going to be good for the future of our children and the future of our education system. So I would like to know your thoughts on this potential expansion of overreach in this area. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your question. Yeah, well, the bill is still being modified. So again, on this bill here, I know it's been a struggle for the author of the bill. I'm not sure yet how it's going to come out. It's not the same as it was when it started. And yes, there is too many hands in education. I've always said that. I'm not going to get any green cards from anything I say in here. I understand that. But I just think there's too many hands in it. I want to say something about education too. I want all schools to do well. We need the schools to do well. Public schools and private schools. I am no fan of these what's the term? Virtual schools. You've heard the story about the virtual schools about 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago, where 3 people had 2 virtual schools in Indiana, lying about the number of students, and took $84 million of our money and left town with it. Now they're in jail. They finally caught up with them. They're in jail. But I don't think we're going to get to $84 million. And we're still going to fund virtual schools. I ask, why are we doing this? I would like to see the money go to the standard schools, the public schools, the private schools. The virtual schools, I'm not a fan of that. One other thing on this kind of ties into it with the locals. Local government, from this point on, is going to have to be more responsible about how they spend your money. The money that the state gets from the locals goes right back to them. They're the ones that tax you. If they want to waste their money when they got an infrastructure problem, maybe it's a sewer system they need to put in, and instead they go with a pickleball court, that's their fault. And if you let them people back in office, then you get what you deserve, because anybody that votes for somebody that does that sort of nonsense should be out of office. It's the locals, folks. It's the people that have meetings here on a regular basis. You need to show up at those meetings and let them know what you think about that. That's a big problem, and it's going to be a bigger problem come this next cycle. They are responsible for your money. We don't need window dressing right now. We need things that help the people, street repair, whatever it might be. For law enforcement, fire trucks, that's what we need. Just want to mention, and also the salaries on your superintendents. Pretty hefty salaries. You talk about money, minimum wage, look at their money they make. Okay, not what we make, what they make.
Thank you, Senator Thomas.
I'm not sure what the language in the so-called partisan school board elections. I didn't support it. I think most people, if you're politically involved at all, you know the makeup of your school board members. You already know who's a Republican and who's a Democrat. It's not hard to find out. All you have to do is go to voter registration and you can find out how they voted in the last election in the primary. So I think they're politicizing it where it shouldn't be. I think local people do better with local issues, and I think they should have left it alone. But I don't think it's a very good bill now. I mean, I'm not even sure what they did to it, but it's not as it started. I think as the last I heard about it, they could say what their party was, but they didn't have to. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure what that gets you.
I don't know why
It's
we
a
do
stupid bill now.
that. Yeah.
I voted against it. I mean, again, as I've said, we're spending way too much time focusing on trying to get more control without saying state legislature wants more control. And, kind of going back to the local piece here, our local governments are already squeezed. This is just one more thing where we should be spending our time on other things rather than trying to make school board races partisan. Frankly, I wouldn't want my entire school board to be all Democrats, and I wouldn't want my school board to be all Republicans. The mix does work, and keeping the partisan ideology out makes our schools thrive. And the more we can allow that system to work, the better we can be. Because frankly, we're in a situation now where our schools and higher education is being bullied into a whole lot of things. And it's really unfortunate, and our kids are the ones that are going to suffer.
Representative Ledbetter.
So I really struggled with this bill up until, the point I had to vote on it. I could not make up my mind. I really, really struggled. It was a tough decision for me. I voted for the bill, and I voted for the bill because it gave a choice. Okay, you can declare whether or not you want to be, you want to run as a Democrat, you want to run as a Republican, or you don't have to put what you're running for on there. So I think that gives an option to people in the communities. As was said earlier by somebody, most everybody knows who's involved in voting and the legislative. They know who the people are running for school board. I think maybe the intent of the bill is that there's a lot of people who straight ticket vote who don't vote for the school board. And by people, placing their name on a ballot under a D or under an R, this gives an option to get more people actually voting for those seats and maybe changing the makeup of that. I understand the need and the want to keep it nonpartisan. I understand that. And like I said, it was a very, very difficult decision for me and one I continue to struggle with, but I voted for it because it gave a choice.
Yeah, Senate Bill 287, when it came to the House, I didn't like it in the form that it was in, the way the Senate passed it out. It had school board members and school board candidates going through a primary process and a general process, going through changing their structure entirely. I didn't like that. But then when the when the House changed it to just a general election the way it is today, and allows for folks who want to run for school board to run as nonpartisan, allows for them to run as independent, it allows for them to run as a political party as well. And I did support that because I think it allows for more transparency into the process. And as far as the comment about voting straight ticket, this is like when folks run for city council at large, or for when folks run for county council at large. If somebody walks in and press Democrat at the top of the ticket, those slots are not automatically selected. You have to go down to the last page, the school board page or the at-large page, and, you know, choose on your own, regardless of pressing straight ticket or not. So for those reasons, and because of, I think that voters should have the most transparency into the candidates, I support the bill. Thank you.
I did not support the bill. Didn't support the House version, didn't support the Senate version. I can't tell you if I had one constituent even reach out. I can tell you I had people from out of district reach out. So that was a pretty robust campaign on their part. The school board is probably, especially in Vanderburgh County, because EVSC school budget is very large comparatively to just about anywhere else in the state. When you mix partisan politics in that, I think sometimes you're going to find leeway towards that. I guarantee if we asked anybody who pays attention to our school board right now, you'd be able to tell you who belongs to what party. I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to say that, you know who this person belongs to or that person. I don't know that there's an advantage to knowing, what party that person belongs to. It doesn't tell you how they're going to vote on any particular school issue one way or the other, in my opinion. So, my other concern, which I don't know that was ever answered, is the Hatch Act on the ability for people that have jobs that don't or can't declare a party. The question was, if there is a independent, does that still give them the opportunity? But you're still listed with a Republican and a Democrat. I don't know that I ever got a clear answer on that, and that concerns me because I have friends that are in employment of the federal government, want to get involved in politics, and usually school board's the first way to do that. That's an odd way to say that, but they want to get involved, but they don't want to quit their job to do so. So those are my reasons for not supporting that bill, and I don't know what they're going to do.
As the bills come in, get churned around, and then come out?
Great question. We'll start with you, Representative McNamara.
Sure. It's a very convoluted process, but I'll try to do it in 2 minutes or under, and they can pick up what I left off. So you can, when a bill goes from one house to another, if it's amended, you can choose to, as the author of the bill, concur, which means you agree with the changes and then sign off, and it can go on to the governor. Or you dissent, which means you don't agree with the changes that were made to the bill. If you dissent, then you as the author have the opportunity to request to be on the conference committee as the chair of that committee on that bill. The House then assigns members who may or may not be interested in being on it. I was assigned as an advisor to 2 bills I didn't know anything about. So you have what are called the conference committee chair, and then you have conferees. There's always a Republican and a Democrat from the Senate, a Republican and Democrat from the House. And then you have advisors that sit there and really don't do a whole lot. We ask questions if there's questions. There's a conference committee report that is created based on the bill, either if it has to tweak a little piece of the language, or sometimes you'll find a conference committee report that changes it completely. In the past few years, there's been folks that have, I think, I'm going to use the word abused the system. And hopefully we don't see that this year, meaning that here's the report, here's the gavel, we've met, goodbye. Typically in a conference committee report, you don't take testimony because theoretically the bill's been hashed out in both places. I had a bill this week I didn't take testimony on because it was the 6th time that bill was heard. So you won't always see people do that unless there's a specific question. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it just doesn't happen most of the time. Anything else I left out?
Well, I think Wendy did a really good job explaining that.
Under 2 minutes.
In under 2 minutes, I'll just start by saying, Glenn, great question. Most people don't understand that process, and it takes a while, even when you're in the legislature, to understand the full process there. But I'll speak to a few bills that, like the budget. House passes the budget. House always starts the budget, goes over to the Senate. Senate Appropriations introduces the Senate version of the budget. They'll move through the process on second reading, allow for any amendments on the floor, then pass it out on third reading. And ever since I've been here, the budget is always sent to conference committee because there's going to be a negotiation past that point. So the only thing I'll leave out is, typically when a bill comes back to, say, Representative McNamara, and she wants to consent, typically she has to get permission from the caucus to consent. So she'll come in, present the changes that the Senate made, and then just has to have overwhelming permission from our caucus to sign off on her motion to concur. And then we take that to the floor and we'll have a concurrence vote. I think that's the only thing you missed out on, but great description of the process.
Well, I don't really have much to say in addition to that. I guess one of the examples would be earlier when Senator Tom said that he just sent it on Senate Bill 26. He was uncomfortable with some language in there. So that bill is going to need to go to conference committee to be hashed out. I will share that, I guess I've been in the process now for 4 years, and as Representative McNamara said, I know there was some pushes from leadership because you go into those meetings and they literally gavel out and you say nothing. And I remember maybe last year or the year before, somebody looked at me and said, Representative Ledbetter, do you have any comments? I'm like, somebody's asking me for a comment at a conference committee. I'm like, this isn't, we really need to make the process a little more transparent and clear on and have a little more input. But in addition, as she stated, she'd already heard the bill 6 times. So it's, it's finding that balance. That's all I have to share. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to my first experience. I know that I'll be a conferee on at least 2 bills. And so, I'm looking forward to the process.
One thing I'd like to add, the Senate looks at germaneness to that. They want to make sure that the language you put in has been heard by one house or the other, that it's passed, the language has passed, and they are sticklers on that. They want to make sure that it's germane. And if you come in with a bill because you're not supposed to be including language that hasn't passed one house, but people are always trying to sneak stuff in that hasn't passed one house. That's right. We shouldn't be doing that. I agree. So that's one thing that the Senate looks at a lot more than the House does, is germaneness to the issue that you're actually working on in the conference committee.
Well, and that's true. Everything's been said, I think. Again, reiterate, the conference committee is made up of Democrats and Republicans, and House and Senate. And there isn't and the chairman actually has control of it. So if he wants to take testimony, or her, they can do so. But typically, like in the case of 26, there was a section, just a small sentence taken out. It was crucial to the bill, and I want it back in there. And so so I did dissent on it, and it'll go through that process. And LSA, the attorneys who draws these bills up for us, they'll then tell you, don't take a lot of questions or any question. It's just a procedural matter. You're just putting that language back in that bill. You're correcting that bill that makes it back to where the author wants it. And since you have bipartisan vote on this, you got your 4. Actually, don't even take a vote, but you have your 4 members, conferees, and then the advisors, and they have to sign off. Each one of those conferees have to sign their signature that they're willing to support the measures of what you're going to do. And then when that's all completed, you take it back, as it says, back to the floor. First, you got to get permission from your caucus to bring it back to the floor to sign off on it, and then they'll vote and it'll go to the governor's desk. It's not really a difficult thing, but it is crucial when you get into points where you have a bill that's almost ready to go and not quite. And so this is a last chance to get the bill in shape. And on germaneness, yes, the Senate's very, very strict on germane rules. And this bill, in fact, the communication companies wanted to get added into it, and it was germane because they're having problems with people stealing their infrastructure, the wires out of the ground, stealing some of their communication devices. And so I thought that was appropriate to have it in the bill. Anyway, it's it's a good piece that we have in keeping the bills moving.
One thing I'd like to add, though, is that if you're a conferee, if you're a Democrat, since the House has supermajorities and so does the Senate, if you're a Democrat and you refuse to work in good faith, or maybe you just don't agree with the whole premise of the bill, you can be removed.
Yeah.
The Speaker of the House and the Senate Pro Tem can remove you from the bill, and then it can go ahead and be signed. They can put somebody on that's more amenable to the language that's in the bill.
And the only thing I wanted to add too is that I think this is a really good description of the process. If you go to the IGA website, you can see, if you click on bill actions, you can see what the decision was, whether it was to concur or to dissent. And then this happens every once in a while. The bill author will dissent, and then it'll immediately go to concurrence as well. You can change your mind, is what I'm trying to say. There's only a few weeks left. Time is of the essence, and sometimes you get to the point where you're like, okay, let's move forward. That's it.
Speaking about this process, a next question from Vicky White about Senate Bill 2. I think this is in that or close to that process, but it's about Medicaid matters. Is Vicky still here? Okay. I'll let you expound on this if you want to. Current wording allows the state to fund Medicaid until money runs out. How many will be covered?
Good morning. 90% of Indiana HIP Medicaid comes from federal funding. So when Senator Thomas keeps mentioning that the 2023 forecasting error has something to do with it, I don't really understand that. That's one part. But after reducing taxes for the wealthy, disinvesting in education, redirecting funds from private and private and charter schools, especially yielding to utility companies and landlords, I think that the Indiana legislators have made us all poor. So, when we talk about property tax release, giving us more money, and then you allow the landlords and utility companies to take it all away, we end up being just poorer. So the original Senate Bill 2 included an enrollment cap of 500,000 and a lifetime average cap of 36 months for HIP. I know that has now been modified to remove both caps, but still it allows the state to stop enrollment once the money runs out. So my question is, how many will be covered under this new arrangement? Thank you.
Vicky. Senator Thomas?
Again, I don't know yet because, like I said, that bill's still being processed right now. But on the with regard to the FSSA miscalculated last year in their budget on their money, $2 billion error, $2 billion error. As a result of that, they now have people on waiting lists, and that's what I was talking about. The people now suffer the consequences of poor decisions or incompetency. They're on waiting lists right now. There's about, I think, what is it, like 15,000 people on the waiting list? A lot of people. And that's a problem for me. That's not so much your state legislators, that's your agencies of the state that make that mistake. With regard to the utilities, CenterPoint, who in here is a favor CenterPoint, is a friend of CenterPoint? Thought so. I haven't come across any of these utility bills that I really support recently that has come up. Especially the last couple ones we had about these nuclear reactors. They're small nuclear reactors, modular nuclear reactors that the people pay up front if an entity wants to install or develop a small nuclear reactor up front. And if that project fails, you don't get your money back. Things like that, it bothers me. And IURC is the entity that is one that grants these rate increases. They're the ones that can make it or break it. That's an appointed board of people. I still say they should be elected. It's a 5-member board. I think they ought to be elected and be answerable to the people. That's just me. I was told it wouldn't work. I think it would. But anyway, we just, without making bills, it makes it more difficult. The utilities, they set their rates, they get approval, and away it goes. And so these are things that's sort of out of our control on that part. And making an error, that was their fault.
Thank you, Senator Thomas.
You know, that Medicaid is a very important issue, and I will tell you that 44% of Indiana's budget comes from the federal government. And you know what's happening at the federal level. And most people aren't happy with it. Are you happy with it? Okay. I'm not happy with it either. But I want to tell you that the Medicaid is a lot of the money that we're getting, just like you said, there are being cuts made at the federal level that we have no control over. And we don't know where those are going to end up, but it's not going to be good. There are all kinds of programs, healthcare programs that are being cut, and FSSA is losing funding as well from the federal government right now already. And so it's a very difficult situation, but I think we need to be cognizant that Medicaid actually helps to fund healthcare for the poorest of the poor. And we need to be aware of that and to help fix that as much as we can. But it's going to be a difficult decision. The Healthy Indiana program, we actually raise cigarette taxes to help to fund that program. And now there's going to be a waiting list. But they have took out the cap, as you said, they took out the cap. So it's going to be left up a lot to the legislature. And also home health care is one of the things that we fund through that program as well. And majority of people want to stay in their own home as long as possible. They don't want to go to a nursing home or an assisted living facility. They'd rather be at home with help. And that program, the home health care program, is helping in that endeavor. But we're just going to have to wait and see how a lot of this shakes out, because we don't know what the final is going to be at the federal level. And it's going to impact what the state is able to do as well.
Thank you, Senator Becker.
I'll keep it short. I got a lot of thoughts, but the thing that was most disappointing for me with SB2, it was a provision added in where if you sports bet or play the lottery and you make more than $3,000, it will trigger your Medicaid to come in question. That is a concern that I think is going to impact a whole lot more people than what those who brought that provision in actually realize. It's unfortunate that there are so many who sports bet from the premise of getting more money so that they can pay their bills, but people do it. A whole lot of people sports bet, a whole lot of people play the lottery. Now, if you win, you're going to be penalized.
Representative Ledbetter.
So Senate Bill 2, the goal of Senate Bill 2 is our Medicaid numbers increase significantly with COVID because the federal government, we get $9 for every $1 we spend. So they are in control of those dollars. And what happened was we had an increased enrollment during COVID because the federal government required that. Well, when that regulation changed, Indiana worked to unwind those numbers back, and Senate Bill 2 is moving to take them back to pre-pandemic levels. That is a part of it. And I just, on the back of my handout here today, if you see where my tax dollars go, Medicaid is at 22%. And if we don't get this adjusted in our budget, it's going to eventually get to a point where it's going to eat into the education in our budget. We are trying to get control of the spending, which is very frustrating for me, somebody that works in mental health. I brought several bills forward this year to address the mental health issue. And because the majority of the people that have mental health issues are on Medicaid, none of them got a hearing. And so, you know, we have to find a way to protect our budget, get the people that need Medicaid to have the Medicaid, and get the people that don't need the Medicaid off of the Medicaid. And once again, you know, finding that balance is what the legislator's about. In the end, I think I hear my speakers say, if everybody's a little unhappy, we've done our job. Just a little unhappy, not miserable, right? Thank you.
Use this. So like I said earlier today, that K through 12 portion of our budget is the largest portion of the budget, as you can see. The fastest growing portion of the budget is the Medicaid fund. And like Representative Ledbetter just said, it's at 22%, which is about $10.3 billion. It's a big deal. And, you know, the House in our budget, we fully funded the Medicaid forecast to the tune of $10+ billion. I think the Senate is planning on doing the same. But back to Senate Bill 2, as you originally asked, the bill came over to us from the Senate. We took out those caps that you spoke of because I think it's probably the right way to approach it with the language we put in, making a bill even better. And when it went back to the Senate this week, the Senate has agreed to concur on our changes, and we'll see what happens from there. Thank you.
I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add. I do agree with Senator Thomas on the agency piece of it. I hate to, think of anybody who is not receiving services because they're on a wait list. But it also makes me very angry if there's somebody receiving services that doesn't need them. And I think really what we need to do is get to the bottom of who are the rightful recipients of the Medicaid dollars versus those folks that really truly need them. And by looking at the agency itself, that has begun in the state. I know keep on calling Senator Braun, Governor Braun, has given that to his agencies. Find the parts in your agencies that aren't working appropriately and doing the right things. And I think that's going to make a big difference. Will it make a dent? I don't know. We don't know. It's too soon to know that yet. But again, the concern is, and I want to say Medicaid was only 11% of the last budget cycle. Okay, that somewhere around there. So don't quote me. 22% of your budget is going to Medicaid. So, it's a big thing for us to wrangle with and make sure that everybody else has continued to keep whole. So, that's about all I had to add.
Yep. I want to make sure everybody has a good chance to give a closing and to address Senate Bill 1 and those issues before we go. So maybe just with 6 folks, maybe at least one question, maybe 2, but I think we're close to there. Representative McNamara, we'll start with you. This is about public library funding in Indiana, Senate Bill 283 from Owen Wertz. And I confess, I've been looking to make sure the bills are still live. I guess I should have done that on this one. Do you know if it is?
No,
it's not.
It's dead.
Okay. Oh, and since I called your name, go ahead and make a statement. This bill unfortunately is dead, but go ahead and ask your question.
I'm just
So that
asking about
here.
like public library funding in general. How have you seen movements to kind of raise that or lower that or in any way, shape or form? And how do you see that changing the way we receive libraries and the way we can use them and if they improve or lose their quality?
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts they want to kick in on that?
Sure.
I couldn't really hear what you asked.
Think
Is it about library funding?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know that library funding is kept up with modern times. I look at the police budget in Evansville, and it was somewhere around 46 million. Fires somewhere around the same. The Evansville Public Library receives $14 million. 14 what? 14.9 million dollars. And then I am conflicted because that's $14.9 million. A percentage of that, in my opinion, should be going to public safety. A lot of libraries are having extensive money being in their savings accounts across the state, looking for ways to spend it in other areas. They are controlled by a board. We don't control them necessarily. So as far as library funding, I don't know. We're in a library right now, but if it were up to me, I would probably divert some of that towards public safety because we've got, a big difference between the two.
Anybody else want to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
the bill you asked about was 283, and that didn't make it out of committee in the Senate. So that language is not alive, as we stated earlier, but I do want to bring this back to our House passed version of Senate Bill 1 that we passed out this week. When I'm looking at the Evansville-Vandenberg County Public Library line item, Representative McNamara is correct. The current net levy coming this way is $14.9 million a year, and under our property tax cut, the library will still receive more money year over year in our proposal. Just want to draw that to your attention. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that the library is basically funded by the property tax. Other sources include local income tax, vehicle excise tax, and financial, and then of course fines and fees from the library. So I'm not sure who asked the question, but it is funded through the property tax and controlled more by a local level.
Senator Thomas.
And the libraries are a taxing entity. They levy taxes. And a lot of these, as Senator McNamara, or House Member McNamara said, there's libraries across the state that are sitting on the top of a lot of money. And again, I go back to, we have piles of money that some people have, that money could have been, if it was done properly, would have been shared. So we would have funding for schools and for fire trucks, for the fire departments and law enforcement. When one entity like this can have that much money and they're not moving that money, they just keep adding to it. And I had a bill last year because I get people calling me complaining about their taxes. And the bill I had was it wasn't going to deprive the libraries of any money, but it was going to take their taxing authority away, put it back into the hands of your local boards, like your city councils or your county councils. They could submit their budget to them. That's a fiscal body that would decide how much money of that budget request they should get. And if they give it all back to them and give it that, then they would answer to the voters on how that board dealt with their money. But it didn't make it. Again, we had an opportunity to help people here and also help the libraries at the same time, and everybody gets taken care of. But the bill didn't make it, and we're still talking about our high taxes, and the libraries are still getting a lot of money. We do it with the schools too. I mean, these universities are sitting on billions of dollars of money, and we're still giving them money. They got endowments. I'm thinking, why not pay it down a little bit, free up that money for our school district, for some of our grade schools and high schools, maybe a little bit.
All right.
I just don't think we're sharing the money just like it should be done. Trust me.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. With 6 folks, which again, we're so grateful for, if you could all just give them a round of applause for being here. And so grateful, and look forward to seeing that occur again next year. With so many questions, want to give them plenty of time to answer and take it in the direction they feel is important here at the end. We'll start with you again, Senator Thomas. I did go through and look at all the questions just to get a flavor of what we weren't able to get to. Common topics, obviously, Senate Bill 1 and school funding in particular. There were 2 or 3 questions about homelessness and sleeping outside. And we had a few questions about a federal issue, which was a federal bill on voting standards. So obviously, feel free to focus on what you think is important, but want to give you a sense of what we weren't able to get to. Senator Thomas? Well,
Thank you. Something that's been on my mind for 2 years, and I finally did a bill this year. And it didn't make it through, it got through the Senate. Well, no, it didn't make it that far because it got tied up in the Senator Mishers Committee. The bill was Senate Bill 203, and what this bill would have done, it would have required an outside independent auditing firm to audit all of our 71 plus state agencies, each and every one of them. I think that they have been operating the same way for many years as standard operating procedures. And I believe, unless somebody can prove me wrong, that we got money bleeding out of these agencies faster rate than the revenues coming in. I mean, like I said, that $84 million debacle where 3 people took a state for $84 million. I got a story here just recently where the Treasurer's Department gave inadvertently Gary, Indiana, $12 million. The money was supposed to go to Michigan City and East Chicago cities as far part of reimbursement back for their casinos. but they inadvertently gave it to Gary, Indiana. That one city got all of it. Now they're trying to fix the mistake to get that money back. It's going to take 3 years to get it all back to where proper pockets it's supposed to go to. These agencies that are spending money, just recently, the State Board of Administration purchased a car for the Lieutenant Governor for $88,000.
Which is ridiculous.
$88,000 of your money. It wasn't the Lieutenant Governor. It was the agency that decided he needed a car because the one Suzanne had was about wore out, I think.
No, he wanted.
Well, he may have wanted. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down, but he took Diego, our Secretary of State. I liked him in. He got a $90,000 car. NDOT does projects that's causing $11 million project here recently with Purdue. They was doing a study. They was putting infrastructure under a section of 231 that would charge the batteries of electric cars, trucks that goes over top of it. It was a project. I was wanting to know how many miles are they doing for $11 million. I found out 1,320 feet, a quarter of a mile. I talked to the director of NDOT. I said, can you tell me why you're spending that kind of money for something that really hasn't been fully accepted yet, electric cars, by the general public? And you're doing this, and then you're going to put charging systems in across the state with this money? And he said to me, well, Senator, it's federal money. My comment was, look, I don't care where it comes from initially. It starts with the wallets of the working people. That's where it comes from first. And $11 million for 1,300 feet of roadway seems a little expensive.
That's right.
So I was hoping that this bill would have got a hearing, we could have got it moving, and that we would just have an auditing firm outside the loop. Right now, the State Board of Accounts does it. Well, the State Board of Accounts is an agency of the state. Isn't that sort of like cousins checking on cousins? I don't want that. I want somebody that's not in the circle. And I do believe if we would have gotten this bill passed and we would institute that, we would find out how much money is getting away. And I'm telling you, for all of you that's interested in your school corporations, I think we'd find out we've got more money coming in than if we seal up the leaks, we'd have more money coming in. We will find that we're drawing in more revenue than what we really need. We wouldn't have to raise prices on gas taxes or or property taxes. We could maybe even eliminate a tax, maybe the sales tax, get away with it. I truly believe that. I'm not giving up. I'm going to try this again next year because I really think that's what we did. I had the people from the governor's office. The governor was behind me 100% on this thing, but I just couldn't get to move through our own Senate. I couldn't get a hearing on the bill, but I think I could sell it. I do believe that it deserves looking at how are we spending the money? Every one of our agencies, every one of them. What did you get last budget cycle? How much did you spend? What did you spend it on? How many people work in your offices? And the study I've done on some of these, I haven't come across anybody at the top level of these agencies that's making less than $250,000. I made a trip over to the state health department. I just want to see how many people's in that 8-story building. They got 900 employees. I walked over there last Wednesday, a week ago last Wednesday, and found out not too many people in their offices, a lot of empty cubicles. And I'm thinking, what's the rate on leasing a building of 8 floors in Indianapolis? What's that cost us with nobody there?
Thank you, Senator Thomas. Senator Becker?
No green cards? Okay. I think it's worth saving our money, folks. Well, thank you very much.
There you go. There you go. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you that came today, and we appreciate your questions as well. I'm very concerned about our utility bills, and I actually contacted Vectren, and well, it's not Vectren anymore, Centerpoint. But not much difference, you're right. Although the bills were cheaper under Vectren than they have been under Centerpoint.
Southern Indiana Gas and Electric was a whole lot better.
And they were a lot better, you're right. But I got my bill, and when I looked at, I got it on the 14th of January, whatever this month is. April. Wasn't April, it was last month, March. And I got it on the 14th. It was due on the 27th. And so I called Lori Thornton, who works for Centerpoint, and I said, you know, Lori, I can afford to pay this, but people living paycheck to paycheck, if you get it on the 14th and it's due on the 27th, that's not enough time to pay your bill. And so she wanted to put me in contact with somebody else from Centerpoint. And we played telephone tag for 3 days. And she finally called me back and said, well, we put that in our offering and the utility IURC approved it. That was their only answer instead of trying to do something to help consumers. Because, as I said, if you get it on the 14th, you're not, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of families are, you cannot afford to pay it by the 27th.
That's it.
And that's
That
the
is
other
it
thing. Our
right there.
bill goes from here to Louisville and back, which is ridiculous as well. But anyway, I just want you to know that I try to keep the people in mind when I vote. It's the people that matter to me, the people that I represent. And I've not always been popular with leadership because of that, but I'll take my chances. Thank you. So with that in mind, we'll continue to work to make things better. It's not always better, and things could be improved upon as well. But your input is very important. I just want you to know that. Thank you.
Well, my first session is coming to an end, and I'm a little sad about it because I'm finally getting the rhythm of all that's happening. But this year has certainly been eye-opening. Spent a lot of time in the utility space, and I do have a letter out to the speaker with the hopes of our utility rates being a topic of consideration for summer study committee. I've also talked to the governor's office about it. They're interested in it as well. And then the conversation about SMRs, the small modular reactors. We'll have a plant going in down the road in Rockport. And with that, though it won't impact our utility bills, it will impact folks who are under Indiana, Michigan. And one of the things that I've been adamant about as we go down this pathway is making sure that ratepayers understand what an SMR is, when they're going online, and if they're not, how that may impact their bills. And then through the course of all that, start taking my Centerpoint bill to my utility committee meetings and talking to the members and say, hey, this is my bill. And they're looking and they see the electric, oh, that's not that bad. Then when all the fees are racked up and sell that it's more than $300, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, you pay this every month? I said, and I'm living in a home that is somewhat energy efficient. That's not to include someone renting a poorly insulated house that was built in the 1930s. And so we have to keep these things in mind. And so working on that, hopefully I'll have some traction. We're still, again, working with the governor on that. I ran into the Secretary of Transportation earlier this week, and in that exchange, he was excited about I-69, is incredibly supportive, and he hopes for the state to have that completed by 2029. So we'll see that is in motion. I'm sure Representative O'Brien will tap on that. One of the things that I was a little bit disappointed about that we passed this session was this attack on homelessness, or was added to an amendment. Luckily, we were added to get that extended to 2026. The reason it was added to 2026 and not going into effect until July 1st, 2025 was because the state just put $22 million into a homelessness center in Indianapolis, and they don't even have the results from that yet. But yet we are getting ready to try to criminalize those who are unhoused. And so with that delay, hopefully more data, more study will be completed, and we can get rid of what is supposed to be enacted in July 2026. Again, we're not focusing on issues at hand that need to be addressed. It's all these other things and fancy bowls of saying, oh, you're saving money, when in actuality, I don't think anyone's going to be saving any money. Our schools are going to suffer. And again, I think our prison system is going to be inundated with more people, and younger people at that, which means we're going to be housing them for a very long time if we don't do something to fix all of that. Going beyond that, I can't wait till you file the Indiana version of government efficiency. Next year, I'll gladly serve as a co-sponsor when it comes to
Thank
the
you.
House, simply because we need to know where our money's going. And then beyond that, after this session, I really want to have some intentional conversations with Indiana Department of Education and all these other places. My fear is that a whole lot of things are happening to education and there's not a sound approach. There's a rural approach that needs to be addressed, a suburban approach that needs to be addressed, and an urban approach that has to be addressed. You cannot put what's happening in effective at McCutcheon Middle School, or excuse me, McCutcheon School, and think that's going to be effective at Lincoln or Glenwood. It's just not going to work. And so we need to be intentional about how we're moving the system along. And as we're embracing apprenticeships, we also need to make sure that those who are attending Bosley, Harrison, and Central have access to the same CTE programs that are available that other people in other surrounding counties are taking advantage of.
Well, Representative Berner kind of stole my thunder on Senator Tom's and the Indiana Doge. And I did see him the other morning incognito going over to scope out the building over there.
And I wasn't dressed like a senator either,
No,
was I?
he wasn't. He was incognito. I also want to say on the utilities piece, I've been working behind the scenes to help Representative Burton try to get something done next year to help people in the poor communities as it relates to the utility bills. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a plug for the Senate Bill 1 and the homeowner, okay? Through a combination of credits and reform, Hoosier homeowners will save $1.3 billion in property taxes over the next 3 years. 2/3 of Hoosier homeowners will see a lower bill in 2026 than they did in 2025, and nearly all Hoosiers will see relief. It includes a 10% property tax credit up to $300 on all homestead property tax bills beginning in 2026. It provides an additional stackable credit, $150 for fixed income seniors, which is very important, those on a limited income, and up to $400 for disabled veterans. It decreases the amount of the total local income tax that local government can collect, reducing the cap from 3.75 to 2.9, a reduction of 1.9 billion in local income tax revenue. We talked about it reining in the 54.3 million in debt. It requires a referenda to be held during general elections to align with a higher voter turnout and increased transparency on referenda questions. It creates a property tax transparency portal to allow taxpayers to compare their current tax bill with the proposed changes, and it supports small businesses by increasing the amount of the personal property tax that qualifies for exemption. So it's really great for homeowners to see some relief from all the inflation that we've faced from COVID. I'm happy to serve. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm glad to see everybody turn out. Thank you.
You know, when I think about our region, there's the first thing I think of is opportunity. There is so much opportunity, and opportunity is the cornerstone of our great state. It's the promise that every child, regardless of their background, regardless of their zip code, has access to a quality education that prepares them for the future and the jobs of tomorrow. It's the assurance that any hardworking Hoosier has a chance to secure a good paying job, support their family, and ultimately achieve the American dream. And it's the belief that any community within our region, whether it's big or small, urban or rural, can truly thrive and prosper. And I want to thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your questions and thank you for the back and forth. And, I'll be happy to, obviously be accessible to the end of session. We've got about 2 more weeks to go, and happy to talk with you guys all today. A few more things I want to touch on that we weren't able to discuss in depth during this conversation is the residential infrastructure funds that have been put into the budget again this year. So a couple years ago, we had a bill, House Bill 1005, which created this program that helped communities with the partner with developers to offset some of the costs with infrastructure for new developments, because one of the biggest inhibitors to new developments and new housing developments in our state is infrastructure. And we put $75 million in the last budget for this, and I think we have started just over 5,000 units across the state because of those funds. And in this most recent budget, we put another $50 million in, $25 million a year to expand upon that. I want to make sure we touched on that. Representative Burton brought up I-69. We are in full agreement moving forward with the progress there. I know that our Secretary of Transportation and the KYTC, their equivalent Secretary of Transportation, are in meeting quite frequently about the progress of the bridge. Just to get all of us on the same page, in December, I believe it was December, I hosted a by-state meeting with all the legislators from our area, all the legislators from Western Kentucky, and representatives from both Indiana and Kentucky to get everybody on the same page and get, to get this moving forward. Because once that bridge comes our way, I think we're going to have even more economic development, more opportunity, like I started, and lots of development. So with that, thank you all for being here, and really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us here today, and thank you for coming. I find myself in foreign territory for the first time in I don't know how many years. All of my bills are done. I'm not fighting, to try to amend something or do something, and all of them but one have been signed by the governor and have moved on. I'm waiting for the next one to concur on, and which I did, and then I'll head to the governor's shortly. But I want to highlight a couple of the bills just because of their importance to our community. House Bill 1118 has already been signed by the governor. It's for critical incident stress management debriefings. It's for our law enforcement, first responders who find themselves in austere situations in which they have to act. It's called first aid mental health for our first responders. It gives them the opportunity to debrief amongst each other after a dangerous situation. Let's say that they come upon a severe accident or involved in a shooting or something like that. It allows them to be able to share their information freely without fear of having it held against them. There's some places in the state that was brought to my attention that when they were doing these, some people call them CISMs, CISM, that they were being held against them by the higher ranking members of their department. So that will go a long way in helping our first responders and be able to really deal with the tragedies that they experience and be able to share their feelings and emotions, I guess is the best way to put it. Another bill I had was on concurrent juvenile delinquency jurisdiction. In 2019, the federal government did a study based on an issue that happened in Oregon. On a military base, juveniles did not have what's called concurrent jurisdiction. In one of the schools there, a juvenile raped another juvenile, but the state itself couldn't intervene, and the federal government was not in a position to charge. So your victim and the accuser both didn't have a place to go. So with the concurrent jurisdiction sets up a framework, not that we have a whole lot of military bases with juveniles on them in the state, but if something were to occur like that, it will set up a system for being able to adjudicate that juvenile who's involved and give relief to the victim who might be there. And then 1403, I concurred on this week and have yet to put that before the caucus, but basically that's my juvenile justice reform bill that I've been working on since 2019. It allows our local governments through what's called JRAC, the Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council. There's $60 million originally in there for our local communities for juvenile diversion programs that can focus on juvenile mental health, family wraparound services, you name it. But the community has to come together through JRAC to apply for these grants. The bill itself kind of updates the processes under what's called the Youth Justice Oversight Committee. And it gives your communities more access to what they need. So if in Evansville, we felt we needed more behavioral mental health wraparound services, that's what we can apply to for a grant. And I'll give you an example of Ripley County. Ripley County's judge sent me a letter because they just recently implemented it there. They got $159,000 grant. And they said that has so far helped at least 10 families, right? That's the cost of sending one kid to juvenile detention. Okay, so this is transformative for all of our communities. Our communities right now don't have it down here in Evansville, and I've been working with our locals to make that happen. And with 38 seconds left, I found myself in an interesting position this year. Whether you agree or disagree with it, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put some guardrails on hemp and marijuana and develop a what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, intoxication level. Right now, alcohol is still the number one intoxication level, but marijuana or DUIs like that are slowly increasing, especially with the other surrounding. It's very, very difficult to do because there isn't an exact amount. You can't say that, like an alcohol 0.08 that you're intoxicated. You just can't do that with marijuana. Passed the bill out of the House, went over the Senate and died because it isn't right. But I will bring that back next year and try to do that. Not only helps you, but it helps law enforcement as well.
Thank you all again for coming, and we look forward to seeing everybody here again next year.